pay locked the doors on me at that Tagaytay mansion and took turns for 3 days, choking me, beating me, filming it all.
My name is Isabella Cruz, but everybody just calls me Isa. I'm 31 now, and I was in that escort life for a little over 3 years before I finally got out. Back then, at 22, I still believed I could actually make things work. I was living in this tiny rented room in Tondo with my 2 younger brothers, Paolo and Miguel. The place was nothing special, just concrete walls and a sheet hanging up for privacy, but it was ours. Every morning I'd wake up before 5, make rice and whatever we had for breakfast, then get the boys ready for school. I'd walk them there, making sure their uniforms were clean even if it meant washing them by hand the night before. I worked the front desk at this cheap little hotel near the port. The pay was crap, like barely enough to cover rent and food, but I got to wear a nice blouse and smile at guests all day. Sometimes foreigners would stay there, businessmen or guys on layovers, and they'd chat with me because I spoke decent English. I was good at it. People liked me. I remember this one regular, an old Australian guy, who always said I had a bright future and tipped me extra just for remembering how he liked his coffee. After my shift, I'd rush home, help the boys with homework, then cook dinner. Nights were when I did the other thing. I'd wait until they were asleep, then I'd go online and do those private video chats. It started small. Just talking, showing a little, you know? The money was way better than the hotel. I told myself it was temporary, just until I could finish my nursing classes. I was taking them part-time, squeezing in courses whenever I could afford it. I wanted to be a nurse so bad. I used to imagine myself in a clean white uniform, working in a real hospital, pulling my brothers up and out of Tondo for good. Sundays we'd go to Mass together. The church was this old building that always smelled like incense and wet stone. I'd light a candle for my grandmother and pray hard, the same prayers my Lola taught me. God sees your sacrifice, the priest would say sometimes when I'd talk to him about how hard things were. He helped with school fees when he could. I trusted him. He made me feel like I wasn't completely alone. My mom, she was this ghost in our lives. She'd send money sometimes from Saudi, but it got less and less until it stopped. I found out later she had another family over there. I never told the boys. I just kept saying she was working hard for us. I was so angry at her, but I pushed it down. There wasn't time to fall apart. Even with all that, there were good days. I'd take the boys to the market on weekends, and we'd eat halo if I had a little extra. Miguel was always the funny one, making jokes about everything. Paolo was quieter, like me, always studying. I was terrified they'd end up in the gangs or doing drugs like so many kids around us. That fear kept me going. I'd look at them sleeping and think, I can hold this together, just a little longer. But money was always tight. The hotel job barely covered basics, and the video chats, they started taking more of my time. I'd feel ashamed after, sitting there in the dark washing my face, telling myself it was for family. God would understand. He had to. I was the strong one, the smart one. The girl who sold fish balls after school as a kid and still dreamed about wearing a nurse's cap one day. I didn't see it then, but I was already tired. Really tired. The kind of tired that gets into your bones. Still, every morning I'd get up, fix my hair, put on that receptionist smile, and keep pushing. Because that's what you do when your little brothers are counting on you. You don't quit. You just keep going, hoping something will finally break your way. Things started to feel heavier, you know? Not all at once, but little by little, like water dripping on the same spot until the wood starts to rot. The hotel cut my hours because business was slow. Suddenly, I was only working 5 days instead of 6, and the tips dried up too. I remember staring at the electric bill that came in one afternoon, sitting on the table next to the leftover rice. It was more than I expected. I paid it late, and the next month they added a penalty. Then Paolo needed new shoes for school because his old ones had holes. Miguel got a fever that turned out to be nothing serious, thank God, but the medicine still cost more than I thought. I was staying up later and later doing the video chats just to cover it. My eyes would burn from the screen. Some nights I'd finish and just sit there for a while, not wanting to move, feeling this heavy weight in my chest. I'd tell myself, tomorrow will be better, just push through. But tomorrow usually brought another problem. The boys started noticing I was tired. Miguel asked me once why I looked sad all the time. I lied and said I was fine, just thinking about nursing school. The truth was, I had to drop one of my classes because I couldn't pay the fees on time. That hurt. I remember walking home from the enrollment office feeling like I'd failed them. Failed myself. I was supposed to be the one pulling us out, and instead I felt like I was slipping backward. Money fights started happening with the landlord. He was this older guy who used to be nice, but now he'd knock on the door asking for rent 2 days early. I'd scrape it together, sometimes borrowing from the little I was saving for emergencies. My online stuff brought in cash, but it was inconsistent. Some weeks were good, others nobody wanted to chat. I started feeling this quiet panic every time I logged in, like I had to perform even when I didn't feel like it. I stopped going to Mass as often, not because I didn't want to, but because I was so exhausted on Sundays. I'd rather sleep an extra hour than sit in church feeling guilty about everything. The priest asked about me a couple times, and I just smiled and said everything was okay. I didn't want him knowing how bad it was getting. I didn't want anyone knowing. One night the power got cut off for a few hours because of another late payment. We sat in the dark with a candle, the boys asking when it would come back. I told them stories about when I was little until they fell asleep. After they were out, I cried in the bathroom so they wouldn't hear. Not loud crying, just quiet tears running down my face while I washed it off with cold water. My mom sent one small amount that month and then nothing again. I stared at my phone for a long time, wanting to message her and scream, but what was the point? She had her own life now. I was the only parent these boys had. The fear started creeping in more. What if I got sick? What if something happened to me? Who would take care of Paolo and Miguel? They were getting older, starting to hang around older kids in the neighborhood. I'd see the way some of the boys looked at them, like easy targets for the gangs. That scared me more than anything. I was running on empty, smiling at the hotel during the day, pretending everything was normal, then coming home and trying to hold it together. The cracks were there, but I kept patching them with whatever I had left. I still thought if I just worked harder, prayed more, sacrificed more, it would turn around. But deep down, I could feel it. Something was breaking. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. Miguel got sick so fast. One day he was fine, complaining about homework, and the next he had this crazy high fever and pain behind his eyes. I knew right away it was dengue. We've seen it too many times in Tondo. I rushed him to the hospital, Paolo holding his hand the whole way. The doctor confirmed it and said he needed to be admitted right away. Then they hit me with the deposit. A huge amount, way more than I had saved. I stood there at the counter feeling like the floor was dropping out from under me. I begged them to let us start treatment while I figured it out. They said no. Cash up front or he stays home. I wanted to scream. I tried everything. I called every relative I could think of. Most didn't pick up. The ones who did said they were struggling too. I went back to the church and talked to the priest. He prayed with me and gave me what little he could from the donation box, but it wasn't even close. I thought about selling the few nice things I had, my phone, some clothes, but that wouldn't cover it either. All night I sat by Miguel's side at home, wiping his forehead with a wet cloth, watching him shake with fever. Paolo kept asking if his brother was going to die. I kept saying no, but inside I was terrified. This was my little brother, the one who still laughed at my stupid jokes. I couldn't lose him. I just couldn't. I went through my contacts, anyone who might help. Nothing. The government assistance? They said it would take weeks to process. Weeks! Miguel didn't have weeks. The online chats? I'd been doing more of them, but even that wasn't enough for this kind of money. Not quickly. That's when a girl I knew from the chats messaged me. She'd moved on to meeting people in real life. She said she could set me up with someone who paid well. Someone safe, she promised, just one time. Enough to cover the hospital and more. I told her no at first. I said I couldn't do that. I was raised better. I was Catholic. I had dreams. I was going to be a nurse, not that. But Miguel's breathing was getting worse. I sat on the floor next to his mat, holding his hand, crying where he couldn't see. I thought about my mom, how she left us. I thought about my Lola, who died in that typhoon. I thought about how I promised myself I would never let my brothers down the way we were let down. I hated myself for even considering it. I felt disgusting. But I also felt this desperate, protective love that made everything else feel small. They needed me, really needed me. Not prayers, not hope, me. I stared at my phone for what felt like hours. My hands were shaking. I whispered to God, asking him to understand, telling him it was only for family, only this once. I told myself I could still go back to my plan after. I could still be the good sister, the good person. Finally, I typed the message back to her. Yes. The girl from the chat set it up for the next evening. She sent me the hotel address in Makati, nothing fancy but cleaner than anything in Tondo. I took 2 jeepneys and then walked the last 3 blocks, my stomach in knots the whole way. I kept checking the message with the room number, my hands sweaty on my phone. The building had this big glass door and a security guard who barely looked at me. I went up in the elevator feeling like everyone could tell why I was there. Room 1423. I stood outside for almost a minute before I knocked. This older white guy, maybe in his late 40s, opened the door. He was wearing a hotel bathrobe and smelled like cologne and beer. "You must be Isa," he said with a smile that tried too hard to be friendly. Come in, I'm Mark." The room was nice. Big bed, city lights outside the window, aircon humming. He offered me a drink from the minibar. I said no, thank you. We sat on the couch and made small talk that felt painful. He asked if I'd done this before. I lied and said yeah, a few times. He talked about his job in construction, how lonely Manila could be, how stressed he was. I just nodded and smiled when it felt right. After a while, he stood up and said, "Should we get comfortable?" His voice changed a little. I followed him to the bed. The lights stayed on. I remember the pattern on the bed sheets really clearly, some kind of blue stripes. The whole thing felt mechanical, like we were both playing parts in a scene neither of us wanted to watch too closely. He wasn't mean. He just wanted what he paid for. When it was over, he got up, went to the bathroom, then came back and counted out the money in cash. He handed it to me without looking me in the eyes. "You're sweet," he said. "I'll tell your friend you were good." I took the envelope, folded it, and put it in my bag. I got dressed fast. He didn't try to hug me or anything, just said goodbye and turned on the TV. I walked out of that room feeling like my legs belonged to someone else. The elevator ride down was quiet except for the awful music. Outside, the night air hit me, and I realized my hands were still shaking. I took the long way home, sitting in the back of another jeepney, staring out at the passing lights. The envelope felt heavy in my bag. I had enough for the hospital deposit and then some. Miguel would be okay. That part felt good. But something else felt wrong, like a door had closed behind me and I couldn't find the handle anymore. By the time I got back to our room, the boys were asleep. I counted the money again under the dim light, then hid most of it. I washed my face for a long time, looking at myself in the cracked mirror. I looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. Not anymore. The money changed things fast. After that first time I paid the hospital in full, Miguel got better, and suddenly there was cash left over. Real cash. I paid 3 months of rent in advance. Bought the boys new school bags, proper shoes, even a little secondhand laptop for Paulo so he could study better. For the first time in years, I wasn't counting every peso. I started seeing clients more regularly. The girl who set me up introduced me to others. Soon I had a couple regulars. One was a Singaporean businessman who liked nice dinners first. He'd take me to restaurants I'd only seen in pictures, places with white tablecloths and menus without prices. I remember sitting there in a dress he bought me, eating steak and thinking, I can't believe this is my life now. Another guy flew me to Cebu for a weekend. Business class. I'd never been on a plane before. The flight attendant asked if I wanted wine and I said yes, even though I barely drank. The hotel had a private pool and everything. He mostly wanted company and someone to listen while he complained about his wife. Strange requests started coming too. One client just wanted me to sit with him in his suite and watch American movies while he held my hand. Paid double. No big deal, I told myself. I moved us to a better apartment in a safer part of the city. Nothing crazy, but it had 2 actual bedrooms and running hot water. The boys thought I got a promotion at the hotel. I let them believe it. I bought myself nice clothes, stuff that made me look like I belonged in Makati. Every time I handed over cash for something, I felt this rush. Like I was finally winning after years of losing. But there were moments that stuck with me. Like the night I overheard 2 clients talking about bribes they paid to local officials, laughing like it was nothing. Or the time a guy from Europe showed me photos of his kids and then asked me to pretend to be someone else during the evening. I did it. The money was too good to say no. I started flying more. Short trips. Tagaytay, Boracay, sometimes Singapore. I learned how to pack light, how to smile through security, how to act like I did this all the time. Wealthy people move different. They speak softer, expect things to just work. I picked up their habits without meaning to. The boundaries kept shifting. Things I said I'd never do became normal after a few months. Staying overnight. Going to parties where I didn't know anyone. smiling through conversations that made me uncomfortable. One client, a regular, liked showing me off to his friends at these private events. I'd stand there in expensive heels, laughing at jokes I didn't always understand, while they talked about deals worth more than I used to make in a year. The scariest part was how fast it stopped feeling strange. I'd come home with gifts, a designer bag, a gold bracelet, and hide them in my closet. The boys were happier. I was paying for better tutoring, extra food, even some savings. I told myself this was the sacrifice, that God would understand because my family was finally okay. I stopped doing the hotel receptionist job completely. My days became sleeping late, going to the gym, waiting for the next message. The two lives I used to live, good sister by day, online girl by night, had merged into one. This was just my life now, the new normal. And for a while, part of me didn't want it to change. The first year wasn't so bad. Or at least that's what I told myself. But looking back, that's when the slow changes started happening. Little things at first. Clients got more demanding. One guy wanted me to learn his kids' names so we could talk about them like I cared. Another expected me to remember his favorite whiskey and have it ready when he landed. I learned to read people fast, the way their voice changed, how they looked at their phone, whether they wanted quiet or to talk the whole time. I got good at pretending. Smiling, laughing at the right moments, asking questions like I was interested. I started using different names depending on the client. Sometimes I was Sophie, sometimes Maria. I had fake stories ready about where I worked, where I went to school. The lies came out so easy after a while that I barely noticed I was doing it. Every night I'd delete the messages, clear the call logs, and make up an excuse for where I'd been if the boys asked. The schedule messed me up. I'd sleep most of the day and be awake all night. I missed Paolo's birthday party because I had an overnight in Tagaytay. I told him I had to work a special shift. He said it was okay, but I saw the look on his face. Holidays blurred together. Christmas one year, I was in a hotel suite watching some rich guy open gifts from his family on video call while I sat there in lingerie he bought me. I lost touch with old friends. The girls from the neighborhood stopped inviting me out because I was always busy. The church group I used to see sometimes, I just faded away. What was I going to say? Sorry I missed the procession. I was with a client in a 5-star hotel. Some clients were nice, almost too nice. One Korean businessman, older guy, would take me to nice restaurants and talk about his mother back home. He'd give me extra money and tell me to study. Those ones were the hardest sometimes because they made me feel human for a few hours. Then there were the others. The ones who wanted weird stuff. Role play that felt off. Or the guys who'd get quiet and controlling. Never hitting, but the way they'd grab my wrist a little too tight or get angry if I checked my phone. I remember this one trip where I got stuck in a private apartment for almost 2 weeks. The client said it was going to be a short stay, but then he had friends coming over. Different men every day. They kept the door locked most of the time. I slept when I could, ate when they brought food, smiled when I had to. I told myself it was just work, that I'd get through it and go home with a lot of money. When I finally left, I took a long shower and didn't talk to anyone for days. Money stopped feeling exciting. The nice restaurants all started to look the same. The hotel rooms blurred together. I'd land in a new city and automatically check where the exits were. I carried cash everywhere, never used cards. I'd feel this weird relief when a client canceled last minute. I could just stay home, watch TV with the boys, pretend I was normal for one night. My body started hurting in ways it didn't used to. My mind, too. I'd catch myself lying to the boys without even thinking. I'm going to a training for work. A friend is sick. The guilt was still there, but quieter, like background noise. I stopped praying much. The rosary my Lola gave me stayed in a drawer. I made new friends in that world, other girls who did the same thing. We'd share tips about safe hotels, which clients to avoid, how to negotiate extra. We laughed about the crazy stuff, but it was the kind of laughing that didn't reach your eyes. One girl told me she'd been doing it for 6 years and couldn't imagine doing anything else. I remember thinking that would never be me. A few months later, I caught myself saying almost the same thing. The worst part was how normal it all became. I'd wake up in a luxury condo someone rented for me, make coffee, scroll through messages, pick an outfit, and go. No more shock, no more crying in the bathroom afterward like I did in the beginning. I just showered, counted the money, and planned the next thing. One quiet morning, I was sitting in a cafe in Makati after an overnight, watching people go to their regular jobs. I realized I hadn't had a normal day in over a year. I couldn't even remember what it felt like to worry about normal things, traffic, what to cook for dinner, saving for a new pair of shoes. This was my life now. The hotels, the clients, the secrets, the money, all of it. I finished my coffee, checked my phone for the next booking, and walked out. No big feelings. Just another day. They told me it was going to be a prestige party in Tagaytay. VIP only. Easy money, just smile, look pretty, maybe a little company. The girl who messaged me said it was a good group, mostly foreigners, some regulars. I'd been to parties before. I figured I knew what to expect. The mansion was beautiful when I got there. Big driveway, lights in the garden, nice cars parked outside. A couple guys greeted me at the door with drinks. Everyone was dressed well. Music playing. For the first hour, it felt almost normal. People talking business, laughing, asking me where I was from. I relaxed a little. Then more men showed up. 10, maybe 11. Mostly foreigners, a few locals. The vibe shifted. The doors got locked. Someone made a joke about it, but nobody opened them again. I noticed one heavy American guy watching me the whole time. He was loud, handing out cash like it was nothing. At some point, they started pulling me toward the big living room. The music got turned down. I told them I wasn't comfortable, that I wanted to leave. They laughed. The fat American paid extra so everyone could watch. He got rough fast, choking me, hitting me while the others filmed on their phones and cheered. I started crying, begging them to stop. That's when one of them said it. "She's already sold for the week. Relax, sweetheart." They kept me there 3 days. The same house. Almost no food. They used me whenever they wanted, sometimes one at a time, sometimes groups. They brought in different things, kept recording. I stopped fighting after the first day. I just tried to stay alive. One of the locals was a policeman in uniform. He didn't touch me much, but he laughed the hardest. Every time I looked at him, he'd grin and say, "Welcome to the real Philippines." I lost track of time. The windows were covered. My body hurt everywhere. I kept thinking about my brothers, wondering if they were okay, if anyone was looking for me. On the third night, one of the Korean guys who had been there as a guest pulled me aside when the others were drinking. He looked disgusted. Didn't say much, just, "Come with me," quietly. He led me through the back kitchen, out a service gate. We walked through the dark garden and he put me in his car. He drove me to a small clinic, paid for the doctor, gave me some cash and a phone to use. He told me not to go back to my old number for a while and then left. I never saw him again. I sat in that clinic waiting room at 4 in the morning, wrapped in a blanket they gave me, staring at the wall. Outside, cars were already driving, people going to work like it was any other day. I looked down at the bruises on my wrists and arms, and something inside me just broke completely. That was it. I couldn't do this anymore. Not one more day. Not one more client. I had to get out, no matter what it took. Getting out was harder than getting in. I tried 3 different times before it stuck. The first time I just went back to my old number after 2 weeks because the money pressure hit and I didn't know how else to pay rent. The second time someone from that world found me and started messaging, reminding me how much I owed in lost earnings. I changed numbers, moved to a smaller place in another part of Manila, and tried again. I was scared all the time. Scared they'd show up at my door. Scared the videos would get out. Scared my brothers would find out. I had nightmares where I was back in that Tagaytay house and couldn't find the door. I'd wake up shaking, checking the locks. For months, I barely slept. The Korean guy who helped me paid for my first medical check and gave me enough to survive a couple months, but after that, I was on my own. I started working as a caregiver for elderly foreigners in Makati. The pay was low, the hours long, but it was honest. I wiped drool, changed diapers, listened to old people talk about their lives. Some days I felt useful. Other days I felt like I was back to being nothing. Leaving the life meant losing money fast. I sold the nice clothes, the bag, everything I could. We moved again, back to something smaller but safer. The boys were teenagers by then and asking more questions. I told them pieces of the truth, not everything. They knew I went through something bad. They saw me cry sometimes and didn't know what to do. I joined a small online support group for girls trying to get out. That's how I started my own Facebook group later. Quiet, private, just helping whoever messaged me. Some girls listened. Some went back. I don't blame them. The pull is real. Your brain gets wired to that world. Even now, I sometimes catch myself thinking in terms of quick cash when bills pile up. Then I remember that house, and it passes. Trusting people again was the hardest. I kept everyone at a distance. The priest from my old church reached out once, offering prayers. I told him exactly what I thought, that praying wasn't enough when girls were being hurt in his community. I still can't forgive him for that. I don't know if I ever will. My brothers are doing okay now. Paulo wants to study engineering. Miguel's the funny one, always making jokes to cheer me up. I'm raising them the best I can. Some days I feel like a real mom. Other days I feel like I'm still that scared girl from Tondo trying not to drown. I'm 31. I work my caregiving job, run the group when I have energy, and try to live quiet. The shame doesn't go away completely. It sits there, quieter now, but it's part of me. I still don't pray like I used to. I'm not sure what I believe anymore. But I'm here. I made it out. And I'm making sure my brothers never have to make the choices I did. If you're listening to this and you're in it right now, just know it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not be strong every day. I sold pieces of my soul to save my brothers, only to realize that the real prison was believing I had no other way out.